What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Kairos Pacific University Show. I'm Rita, and today I have an incredible guest with a wonderful story. With me here is Miss Cassie, and Cassie does something that is a little bit different than the rest of us, but something we're all aware of. You deal with human trafficking.
Yes, I
Talk
do.
to me. First of all, tell us who you are, what you do, where are you from, all the good stuff, and then we'll get to it.
All right. I'm Cassie Hebler. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm currently working in the state of Georgia, but I did most of my human trafficking work in Georgia and up in New Hampshire as well. And I've also done a lot of work with domestic violence and sexual assault victims too.
That's incredible story with incredible type of work. I, as a girl, hear all the time, you have to be careful, watch where you're going, do this, do that. But it all feels like it goes over my head. How do we make it practical? What is this? How do we protect our girls from trafficking, protect our boys from trafficking?
Yeah, so a lot of things come into that. I think, a lot of times when we think about human trafficking, we have this kind of vision that kids and teenagers, women are being kind of snatched and kidnapped off the street. And while I do think that does happen sometimes, I think most of the time, folks are being groomed into the industry, right? And so that means that folks are being contacted maybe at school, or a lot of times online right now is where the grooming happens, where someone might reach out to a teenager like, oh my God, I think you're so beautiful. I think you could be a model. Like, I've got this photo shoot coming out. I'd love for you to come. Like, you can bring, I'll buy you clothes, right? And then someone might be like, okay, that's great. I would love to do that. And then all of a sudden you think that that's the purpose of why you're going there. And then it turns, right? That you've developed a relationship with this person, and they may say something like, well, now that you've done it, I bought all these clothes for you. You kind of owe me thousands of dollars, and here's how you can pay me back, right? And so it's grooming a lot of the time. And so it's usually by folks that people know, or they think that they know.
So how do we stop these relationships from starting?
It's a loaded question, right? Because the whole industry is money driven, right? People are paying for trafficking. People are paying for sex with young people. And so it's how to stop it overall is that you have to stop the money, right? It's a yes. Business. It's something that's making money. But I think that the other thing that we need to do is do awareness, community awareness, for folks to really talk about what it is, what it looks like, how folks are presenting in the community. I think a lot of times victims and survivors are presenting in our schools, in our hospitals, in our homeless shelters, especially for younger people. Our teenage homeless service providers is where a lot of folks are showing up. And we need to look at...
Do they show up as people who are working? How do they...
I think that they're showing up as, homeless teenagers who've ran away from home because it wasn't safe there for whatever reason. A lot of folks that are groomed are high risk because they've experienced...
just to make it a little bit more understandable. The people showing up to the clinics or to the homeless shelters, these are the people grooming, or the people being good? Like, are they taking on a character where they go into these girls? These are the girls that are vulnerable?
These are the girls that are vulnerable. So these are the victims that we're seeing. So they may present at schools to a school counselor. They may present in an emergency room to a doctor. And they may have people with them, right? That don't want them to be alone.
So tell me what present means.
Show up. Like,
delve a little bit more into it.
Let's say, for example,
I'm a counselor. I'm at school, and a girl comes up to me and she says, I am being abused at home. Is that a red flag that I should look for?
Yes. So she may say, I'm being abused at home. I think a lot of times that's how they come into our spaces. I'm being abused at home. My boyfriend is being abusive. My boyfriend is controlling. A lot of times folks they think that they're in romantic relationships, and a lot of times they are. And then once we dive into it a little bit more, we realize that, being abused at home or being hurt at home or unsafe at home is now looking like familial trafficking, right? Where family members are maybe selling their children for sex to get maybe drugs or alcohol or things of that nature. And but the way they present is things aren't safe at home.
Okay. So by present, what I'm understanding, for those of you who don't, for those of us who aren't necessarily part of this community, when we talk about present, we are saying this is how they're going to communicate with you. And these are the things you should look for.
Yes.
Because I think for the majority of us, and I don't know if that's the case, but from my observation, the majority of families aren't like this.
Correct.
And because they're not like this, it's very hard to conceive the idea that, oh, a parent might actually do that, or a step-parent might do that to their child.
Yep.
How can we, and so we shy away from the entire idea, how can we raise awareness to people who this is not their norm, praise be to God that this is not their norm, and make it believable? Because it's very hard to digest someone saying, oh yeah, so-and-so sold his daughter for sex. It's very hard to digest, like, you can't. So what do? How do you make sure people are informed?
I think part of it is having conversations like you and I are having right now, and really answering questions from folks about what it is, what it looks like, how other communities are responding to it. So I think that's one of the important things too, is to look at, our communities nationwide and see how they're responding to it. Most of our communities have human trafficking task forces, and most people don't know about
exactly.
them.
I was saying I've never seen anything on that topic.
Yeah, so most of our communities do. So you can Google your own city that you live in and Google human trafficking task force, and most of the time something's going to pop up. Most of the time, these are community-based task forces where you can sit in on the meetings. We need mental health professionals. We need our church professionals. We need everyone at the table to be able to have a coordinated community response to the issue. So part of it is awareness and sitting in, because each community looks different. And so to be able to be a part of it in your own community, understand how it looks in your community and figure out how to assist or help is really important. And most people don't know about the task force.
I look at it and I'm like, what can I possibly do? But from what I'm hearing you say, would you recommend like pastors or priests or, the religious community to go into these places, get the training so that they can recognize it? Is that what we're looking to do?
Yeah, or even just most of these task force meetings are open to the public. So find out when they are, connect with the folks that are running them, and go to the meetings and see what's happening.
I would love to tell you that this is what people do, but this is not what people are going to do. So I want a practical solution. So as a head of an organization, again, like a pastor, it might be good for the pastors to go in and look at these resources so that he can recognize it when people come to him and say, oh, well, this is X, Y, and Z. Because if someone was to come to me, let's say, and I do marriage and family therapy, and they'd be like, okay, well, my boyfriend is abusive, let's say. I'm like, let's work through that. Is it, well, what do you, classify as abuse? What's going on, Whereas maybe if someone comes to you, you automatically think, okay, this is on the table. For most of us, this is not on the table. So we want to get it. What would be the most, if you could control things, how would you do?
How would I do what exactly?
How would you go about sharing that information or making sure people come through the door? Is if I say, okay, go look it up. I will tell you, I'm sitting here. I'm out of curiosity, I'd go look up the task force. But am I going to go into the meeting? It's probably not high on my priority list. How do we get it high enough on people's priority list to get them to really see that this is happening and it's happening frequently?
It's a really wonderful question, and I wish I had a really great answer to it, because I think that this is the gap in our communities, right? Like this is the issue. This is the gap, because most people don't know how prevalent it is. And it's hard to get the information out there because I think it's a frightening topic to discuss overall, right? And so
I don't want it to be real, right?
Right.
Like we live in denial. That's like, I don't want this not only not to happen, this is the elephant in the room, and I don't want to see the elephant in that room.
Exactly.
Yes. So let's go back to the point of presenting. How can we identify girls or guys? Let's start with this one. What's the percentage of guys to girls ratio? When we think of trafficking, we think of women. Are men being trafficked?
Yes, men are being trafficked, and I would say at an equal rate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think, again, this is one of those things where when we think about it, we think about, women or girls being snatched off the street.
Yes.
The other thing that is really interesting too is that most of the statistics internationally have found that most of the traffickers, the people that are grooming folks to come into the industry, are women. 70% of them are women. And so it's women that are trafficking young children into these industries a lot of the time.
That's very shocking.
And again, because we don't think of that.
Why do you think that that's the case?
I think that some of it is when we think about grooming and what it really looks like, some of these women might be in the industry already, being groomed by someone else. And now that they're in there, a lot of times the whole industry, they say that, like, now you need to groom folks. The way that you pay me now is that you groom other people to come in. Right. And so they're using trafficked victims to groom future trafficking victims to come in. So it's kind of a
it's
a
what
level
they
after
know,
level.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
This is all they know. And a lot of these girls were probably groomed themselves at a younger age.
Right. And once they're in, it's very, very difficult to get out because federally, the law, it's forced fraud and coercion. Right. So folks are being forced into it. Their safety is at risk. They're being told that they're going to get paid fraudulent stuff, right? And then they don't get paid, right? Or they're being coerced, right? So once they're in, it's really difficult. If I'm being told, now you owe me even more, and what you're going to do instead this time is you're going to bring 5 more.
And people trust women.
And people
trust women a lot more.
That's right.
Than they do with men. I mean, men have been portrayed as the villain in the story for quite a bit of time, at least in our recent history, where they're all after, sleeping with you, and they're also but women are also portrayed as the victim. And so we can have that person be there. What would you suggest that, again, to understand a little bit more of who that person in front of me? So, right, there are these girls, and they're not necessarily being forced into it, or they don't know that they're being forced into it. They don't realize that they are being trafficked. So what would you suggest for us to help them see that? And how can I, again, we talked about going to community events, but if I see that person on the street, how do I recognize that this person is being trafficked?
I think that this is where the intersection of domestic violence and human trafficking comes into play. And I think it's huge and very, very relevant. It's huge, right? So I think a lot of the times we'll end up in conversations with folks saying, like, I'm in an abusive relationship. My boyfriend just hit me, or, my boyfriend's controlling my finances, or whatever it is. That's how they're going to come to us initially. And it's not until we dig in a little bit more to really ask them, like, tell me more about what you're experiencing. What else is going on in the dynamic within your relationship?
Do they know they're being trafficked?
No, most of the time, folks will not say, hello, I'm being trafficked. Right? Most people don't know that. And again, that's part of the community awareness piece, but that's where it's our job to kind of ask more questions, really kind of figure out what's going on. And then we kind of understand, like, oh, this is what's happening. It's not that he's controlling your fine. Like, he's, part of it is that he's forcing you to, sell sex, right? And he's taking all of the money. But she may present saying, my boyfriend is controlling my money.
And if you have, would you consider prostitution to be a part of sex trafficking?
Absolutely.
Even if they're keeping a portion of their money?
Yes. No.
There's a big argument that says this is very empowering to women, right? Like, go out and make your own money, especially with what's the site that they do now? The app.
I don't know.
There's an app where they like post pictures of themselves and
oh crap.
I don't know the app. My gosh, okay, I'm blanking out on the name, but it's a very like big thing. And some people are making a lot of money out of it. Some women are making a lot of money out of it. So when you have things like that and they are getting the money themselves, how do you change that mindset for them to understand, oh, I'm actually being trafficked into this. This was not empowering to me at all.
So that's the different, right? And that's where the forced fraud and coercion comes into play, because some some women are, and they're perfectly happy. I'm all for people doing what they want to do that makes them feel empowered and all
Girl,
of that
I'm
kind of
not. If
stuff.
you're selling sex, this is not. Don't come to me and say that and expect me to be happy about it. But
But
yes,
part
yeah.
of it is the forced fraud and
Yes.
coercion piece of it. And so there's a fine line in there.
Yes.
Because forced fraud and coercion can appear in so many different ways, and can appear as part of a romantic relationship where my boyfriend is telling me, hey, in order for us to make rent this month and you're part of our family, I need you to do this.
Wow.
And maybe I just need you to do it one time. And so I might say, okay, I got you. I'm going to do it one time. And then next month he's coming back to me and saying, hey, we're still short. Can you do it 2 times? Can you do it 3 times? And all of a sudden now I'm 6 months in and I'm doing it every single month.
Do you think these men are doing this intentionally?
Yes.
Okay. Is there ever a chance where they're not? Where they're like, okay, they really are short on money, and obviously this is not the way to go, but is that ever the case?
I think no. And I only say that because they're making quite a bit of money on it, right?
Okay.
I'm not asking you to go out and be like, hey, we just need you to do it for $20. Like, I'm asking you to go do it for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And so I would say money is the driving force of the whole industry. So I think it's money driven.
Okay. And if we say prostitution is a portion of it, but there are less obvious things like you have stripping.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feed into it? Or what are the industries that you can look at and say, like, okay, the majority of people come from this, and that?
So I think part of that is in the grooming piece of it. When we look at vulnerabilities that folks have that make them more vulnerable to being groomed into a trafficking situation. And so some of those are current abusive partners, right? History of abuse in families, alcohol and drug use, homelessness, being transient, not, being kicked out of your home and having
finding a space to call your home. And it's very dysfunctional.
Exactly.
What industries are these girls working in that has the highest recruitment rates?
I would say that probably modeling is one of the top ones that I hear, modeling and music. So again, like that example of, someone coming to me and being like, oh my God, you're so pretty. We're doing this photo shoot this weekend. We'd love you to come. I've got some outfits for you. And so I go, and maybe I go, 4 or 5 times, and it's perfectly wonderful. And I'm getting these shots back and I look fantastic. And I think I'm actually going to make it. Like, I finally found some people that are going to get me to that part of my career. And then all of a sudden I'm being told like, oh, well, now you kind of owe me for it. Or if you want to get to the next step, now you have to, pay your way, right? And here's how you can do that. So I've talked to a lot of women who are in this modeling industry and been like, I was in it for 8 months before someone asked me to do it.
Wow.
And so they really thought that it was part of their career path. And then once they're in, it's just like, oh my God, well, I just need you to do it this one time.
Do all these women come from dysfunctional families?
A lot of the time, yeah. But some of the time I can remember several that didn't, that just really wanted to start their music career, start their modeling career. And then all of a sudden they were kind of groomed into it. A lot of times those grooming situations are also encouraging people to leave their communities. So the couple of examples I'm thinking of is, folks being asked to leave their home space and like, oh, come to Vegas, right? Because that's where it's all happening. And so people are leaving their family and friends support, right, to go out there, and then they're isolated and alone.
Wow. And then it's very hard to build communities. So for girls who are listening to us and they're watching, or for men as well, build communities where you go. I say, right? If you're going to school somewhere, don't just rely on just going to class and come back. Go to church. Find a home.
Oh my God. It's the biggest kind of gap, right? And in all of our communities is being able to find where we belong. And I think it's so important, because loneliness is a thing, right? When we're lonely and we're looking for people and we're extra vulnerable because of maybe some other things that we've been through, it's really important to have some solid, spaces where we can feel welcomed, for sure.
And I really do feel that churches provide that
Absolutely.
in so many different ways. With all the things that you have been through and seen, and counseled, what has been the most prevalent story to you or maybe the most redemptive story too?
The one that's popping into my head right now is I worked with, again, a young girl in her early 20s, and she came into, it was an individual counselor. She came into my office for individual therapy, and she started talking about her boyfriend and started talking about some abuse that she was experiencing in the relationship. She was from Canada, so she was from out of the country, and she had moved here to be with him. She had brought her dog with her. So she was here. They were living in a very wealthy part of our community, and she was very, very scared. And as I continued to talk to her, and it wasn't until maybe 2, 3, 4 sessions in that she started to tell me about some of the things that were happening within that relationship.
So
and
what would be some,
one of the things that was happening is that he was telling her, like, oh, yeah, again, we're short on rent this month. I can't pay it. I need you to go do this just this one time.
Yeah. So his solution was, instead of moving from an affluent community, let's go.
Let's go. And I'm not even sure that he was, because he controlled all of the finances in the relationship. She wasn't sure if they were actually short on money, right? So she never really knew how much he was bringing in or what they actually needed, which is part of domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
Where sometimes our abusive partners are controlling the money. And so that's what was happening in this case. And so I was starting to get some more information, and she ended up having to do it more and more each month. And she eventually came to me and she was like, I need to kind of get out of this situation. She was like, I want to go home to my mom, but I want to bring my dog. He had taken her passport. She didn't feel like she could leave. And so one of the things that ended up happening, and why it was such a lovely kind of redemption story, is that, you know, we have a lot of resources for domestic violence in our country, but we also have a lot of resources for human trafficking. And so trafficking resources sometimes can be exponentially more helpful than just domestic violence resources. So because we were able to identify that she was a trafficking victim, we were able to access some additional resources for her through our human trafficking organizations. And we were able to get her home with her dog, which was really wonderful.
Praise be to God. Was she afraid of what her mom would say? Is that a fear?
She wasn't. And I think, her parents were very, very supportive. She had been isolated from them, so they didn't really know exactly what was going on. And her boyfriend wouldn't let her talk to them very much. So when she was actually able to make the call and say, like, Mom, I'm coming home, her mother was just over the top wanting her home, right? So she came from a very supportive environment.
Praise be to God. Do you have any stories of men being trafficked? How does that look like? Because for a lot of us, it's very hard to conceive that these strong, masculine, creatures, right? As women, we see them as the strength. As sometimes we see them in a place where they are frightening to us. And so they're being groomed at the same rate, being trafficked at the same rate. What then? How does that look like?
So for men, some of the ones that I can think of that I've worked with have been part of our LGBTQ plus community, where maybe the two that I'm thinking of specifically had...
Is that the majority of the cases?
That has been the majority of the cases that I have worked with. Just personally, I don't think that's the majority overall. But from what I've worked with, that's what's happened. And so both of them that I'm thinking of ran away from home because they weren't really accepted at home based on their lifestyle choices that they were making. Ended up presenting in the community at our youth homeless shelter. And because of that vulnerability of, one, not having their family support system, a second vulnerability of not having a place to live, and wanting to find community, they were very easily groomed out of those spaces into the industry.
And then so a lot of it, I assume, is feeling like you don't have resources, that this is urgent, that there's no one there to help you. And I feel like when you come from backgrounds, or people come from backgrounds of broken families, or they live in poverty, or even if they don't live in poverty but have a poverty mindset, it plays a big portion on that. If you were to sum up everything that you're doing into 3 categories that people could look for, what would they be?
3 categories of
For resources.
Resources. Okay. Yes. So for resources, the first resource that I would suggest that everybody knows, and again, part of community awareness, is that we have a national human trafficking hotline. And you may have seen it.
I didn't know that.
So a lot of times you might see it in the airport, in the bathrooms. Most of our airports have these signs that say, like, if you see something, say something.
Yes. But, you know, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, someone is taking someone else's bag.
Yeah.
You know?
So when you call the hotline, and it could be anyone calling, you could call the hotline and be like, I just saw something at the airport, or I'm confused about or concerned about this. Or it could be someone who's actually experiencing trafficking calling and being like, hey, I'm not safe. What ends up happening when you call that hotline is whoever answers that hotline, the hotline is run by an organization called Polaris. Polaris answers the hotline. They figure out which community that you're in our country, and they funnel that call to that community. And what they do then, most of those, that's the call comes into the human trafficking task force. Usually there's a point person who's a victim advocate.
Wow.
They figure out what resources are in the community for that person, or they connect them directly to law enforcement to investigate something. So if you are in the airport and you see something, you can call the hotline and be like, hey, something real wonky is going on here. They're going to send it to that community, to probably law enforcement, to check it out and investigate.
Wow.
And kind of go from there. So that is the number one resource for people to use, because and I would say to anybody, like, if you even suspect something, make the call.
Okay.
Because those are the folks that are going to be able to figure it out.
And for people who are listening, I know in California, at least, everyone who works in education is a mandated reporter. So you can essentially go to anybody, any teacher that you see, any professor that you see, let them know they may not have the resource themselves, but they will have to tell.
Yes.
And something will happen. So you don't have to go to a counseling office.
Nope.
You don't have to go find a specialist. You could actually just go to your local high school and say, hey, this is what's happening. Could you help me?
High school, doctors, teachers.
Yes, anyone. We all have to go through this training of mandated reporting. On that note, is there anything in your mind and in your heart that you're like, I have to share this with people? Haven't had the chance to, but if there's one thing they leave today with, this isn't.
I would say that the one thing, in addition to just knowing about the human trafficking hotline, is to really try and get yourself aware about what's happening in your community. So I will say again, like, please research your local domestic violence, your local human trafficking task force. And, at least just look at their website and see what they've got going on, see when their meetings are, see what kind of education they're doing. A lot of times they'll have videos or trainings online that you can watch about what's actually happening in your backyard, because it's different in every community.
Local as in statewide, local as in citywide.
A lot of times it's statewide, but in our bigger, larger states, like my guess is for California, I don't know this for sure, but California is a very large state. So I imagine that they probably have task forces, and they probably have one in San Diego. They probably have one in Los Angeles. They probably have one in San Francisco, right? So like states like that are going to have several.
These task force, are they ran by the government? Are they ran by organizations?
They can be ran by both. So most of the task forces, when they get started, are funded by the Department of Justice federally. So that funding allows communities to be able to start something up. They get funded for 3 years, and then they have to, find their own funding after that. So depending on how each state works when they receive that funding, it could go to a nonprofit that's kind of the point person. So like in my case, in Atlanta, it was run through the government because that's where the funding flowed. So our task force was run by the state of Georgia. In New Hampshire, where I worked, it was run by a nonprofit. It was run by the local Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, where the task force came out of. So it just kind of depends on your community.
Okay, and for the parents who are watching this, one final message.
Oh, goodness.
Because it's scary, right? It's so scary to think that.
Be mindful and watchful of what your kids are doing, especially online. And be looking for grooming for those kind of cases where it's like, oh, Mom, I'm going to go, and I've got a model shoot this weekend, stuff like that. I've got a job interview, things like that. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of domestic violence. characteristics, tendencies, things like that happening in teenage relationships, right? Because those things can lead to something more dangerous as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Cassie. And it was so lovely talking to you. If you guys want to connect with us, we're at Kairos Pacific University on Instagram, all social media as well. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at The Word with Rita. And how can they find you?
You can find me at Cassie at Mental Health Education Online. And
all right, perfect. Thank you so much, Cassie.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys